schedule tomorrow, and one popped up, and I was like, because I gotta look on another calendar, and I think I look at it, and then I'll accept, and then I don't look at it again, and then I'm like, 4 meetings tomorrow.
I did that over the weekend. I helped Brody with like legal stuff, and he was like, "Hey, you're still good for 3, right?" And I was like,
"What? Wait a minute. Yeah.
3 o'clock today. Yeah, that works perfect. Actually, I'll be there.
I know.
I did agree to do that. You're right. But I didn't add it to that calendar, so it just didn't exist.
And that's where I'm like, what? I gotta get that together for January. Like last year was not a big deal, but this year.
So you just want to pull the ones from Outlook over to
my regular Google Calendar. Yeah, this calendar. Yeah.
We do that.
I was just like, gosh dang it. As long as I don't need legal advice again, I'll be on one of your committees.
Right.
The last one, I was like, what? I need legal advice?
Yeah, just whenever.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know.
How's Bill?
So the camera's not working again?
And I restarted it.
What's that?
Restart.
Nope, go ahead.
Western Weaver
It's
County
actually in that
Active
corner.
Transportation Plan.
No,
Council members and stuff are invited to.
Still
You
showing
can't
up?
come, the small one is a kind of a public open house for the transportation, active for trails and bikes and stuff like that.
okay, well, I would hope one of us can be there.
Well, I'm hoping
Do
all of
know?
you can at least,
Can we all be there together? Okay,
Because that's normally
because you're not
just your
making a decision,
camera,
you're just
right?
providing input.
okay.
Yeah, it's normally just the camera
It's
view.
next Tuesday.
Okay, give it a second. 'Cause this is
So they tore your water up? And they get used back up?
for the
Oh, that's quite all right. You don't need cameras.
Oh, here we
there
go.
we go. Okay. We're good.
You're good.
So Matt Howard, how's your hurt?
Always something.
On your end, yes.
Yeah, just your end.
Over on my perch? Over at my babysitting stand?
I saw Maggie a few times. Seem to be separated when I see you anyway. Permission to approach the bench. Oh yeah, need to get up, brother.
How are you?
Good. Look, I'm the one vote for council guy for you again.
Good, good. I appreciate it. How are you?
That's a smart way to do it, right?
Yep. I try to tell everybody that.
Vote for one. Proves that.
This is for the,
Doesn't dilute your vote.
Definitely. Appreciate it. How are you?
So Brody, I saw
Brody's
yeah, so approve it, please.
I know. This guy here. Hey, how are you?
How you been doing?
Not bad. How you doing, Mayor?
Good, how are you today?
Staying out of trouble?
Bob Dandoy.
Gail Banion.
Dale, well, you and I have talked before.
Yeah.
Will you help me remember when that conversation and
It's been about the intersection.
Yep, I remember now.
Which is
And
why I'm here tonight to sing your praises, by the way.
not me. I'm going to tell you one thing, and I told this in a public meeting many times. Dale, the fact of the matter is that change that occurred right there on 4,000 and 1,900 was your responsibility. When you put that issue and you brought that up and you started putting, and we did the facts, we found out that was as big a problem as it was.
Too bad it's
You made
taken
all
them
the
100
difference.
years to get it finished.
It took them time. They had a little electrical problem, but I'm telling you, you did good.
Well, I think you need to speak be on the record because I thought you did good.
Hey, I just listened to what you had to say.
It's a team effort.
It's a nice addition. It looks good.
It's so much better.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's gonna save Brian so much property.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I like it.
So, yeah, what I'm here about.
Okay, it's good to have you, Dale. It's a prominent name. I'm sorry. I'll think of it.
That's all right.
Okay. I'll think of it.
What you're saying, Ann, is
All right.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Brian, how are you?
I'm good, Joe. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm happy when you guys are happy.
If I was any better, I'd be dead, so.
Well, I think I could be a little bit happier on a couple of things, but
So we're missing our slacker again.
Kevin, how you doing?
Fine, how you doing, sir?
Good. It's good to have you.
How are you?
You gonna take a moment and share a thought with us tonight?
Today's gonna be exciting.
You always welcome your input, okay? I like it. Binya.
Not much,
Yeah,
just a
Joe.
little.
I don't think there's a cow.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard about that.
It's not, oh, yeah,
It's,
yes.
I can tell you this, it'll never happen as long as 3 council members don't vote for him. So Ogden would have to infiltrate the council, and I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon.
I know Randy says he's gonna die on it.
I know.
He did before his wife passed away.
Yeah.
I always felt like he was staring at
Did do.
At the end of the month. Well, there was some reasoning, I assumed, but I will tell you. And we just had to pick the day, and but we're gonna win.
I think you're gonna see a change of Ogden in the airport.
Okay.
How you feeling?
I think I can't remember the last time I never had a cough.
As long as you don't got Rona, we're all right.
No, I tested myself Saturday. Good to be here. Came back negative. It's just one thing after another. Just got other crap going on too, so I'm like, just had it with my
I
body.
can't believe we're halfway through January. We're gonna blink, we're gonna be halfway through June.
Fart.
That guy that
Mary, who's this? Western County Active Transportation Plan. You're invited.
Yes.
if Ron Powell wanted to dump a transformer right there, he couldn't say a thing about it.
You're absolutely correct.
For that Clark Bank? Yeah, which one's he?
I don't know.
if Randy's gonna be able to, okay. He went to the other meeting then, okay.
I did tell my boss to lay off on affordable housing this term. He says, I've heard that from a lot of city officials.
I'm just really concerned with what the governor is pushing. We'll know more about that in the next few days. Okay, we're close, gentlemen, ladies. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody else. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Roy City City Council meeting for January 16th, 2024. The time is now 5:30. I want to recognize that we do have Councilmember Jackson with us tonight, Councilmember Sophie Paul, Councilmember Saxton. We're going to excuse Councilmember Scadden. He's doing work. And we have Councilmember Joe Paul, and we do not have our youth council member tonight. So just recognize that we do have most of the council here with us tonight. And again, want to welcome you. We'd like to start with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. And certainly we do have Councilmember Sophie Paul going to lead us in both. So, Sophie?
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sophie. Brittany, Matt, I do recognize the fact is we have a new flag, a new Utah flag, okay? I know there's a lot of talk about whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing. I won't debate that tonight, but certainly try to keep a hold of the old flag. It could very well come back. Okay, with that, we do have one consent item, specifically the appointment of Brody Bailey as an alternate number 2 for the Planning Commission. Brody, I believe you're here with us tonight.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. I appreciate you joining us. Okay. For the record, we've asked, and he's accepted, to come help us join the Planning Commission to kind of help steer, the land use requirements in this city. It's a noble effort, I will tell you. You will learn more about how the city functions than you can possibly imagine in the Planning Commission. It's just so much stuff. But it's really interesting, very effective. I would just encourage you that when Steve talks about any training or kinds of things to help you to kind of navigate that, take advantage of it. There's some really good stuff there and certainly a lot of things that go on. So thank you. I believe from our conversation, Steve will go ahead and make arrangements to have you sworn in, in the Planning Commission meeting. I'll let him kind of decide when that's going to happen, but we do appreciate your willingness, to help us. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
I don't think so. So, Mayor, can I just say, he former graduate, Roy High, 2014 student body president, and we should be very happy that we have him on the Planning Commission. He's a very smart young man.
Those are powerful comments, Councilmember Jackson. And let me just make this clear. If there was anybody born, after 1950, who in fact lives currently in Roy or even visits Roy, that council member knows them, she knows their history, knows where they were graduated, and probably even knows their kids. So that's a great, Brody, that's really a great comment coming from a council member when she tells me that you in fact have been a long participant in our city. So thank you again, and thanks for that. That's great. I do want to then have by the way, any other comments from the council? Okay, with that
Make a motion, we approve the consent items.
I asked for that. Thank you, Joe. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Thank you. The consent items are approved, and Brody, you're part of the team. Okay, thank you for joining us. Okay, this is the public comment period. If you'd like to come up and share a thought, any topic, please do so. All we ask is your name and address.
Dale Benyon, 2255 West, 3875 South. It's over in the north end. Roy High School 77 alumni.
Did you know that, Ann?
No, but I know somebody who graduated in 1977.
One of my friends. I'm here tonight about the beautiful completed intersection up there at 4000 South and 1900 West. About 10 years ago, I got rear-ended there, making a right-hand turn onto 1900, and at that time, it only just put a small little dent in my bumper, but I saw, because I live up there now, I bought the place I grew up in, but I saw accidents there all the time. You know, same place, right turn lane, because that control box for the lights was right in the way for people trying to see what traffic was coming. People would pull forward a little bit, car behind them thought they had left. They went to pull up and bang, rear-ended them. I saw a lot of really serious property damage there. So it's been a few years, but I approached Mayor Dandoy about that, explained the whole situation to him. He promised me he would look into it. And we exchanged a couple of emails, and he contacted the police department and emailed me and says, yeah, I've looked into it, and you're right, there are just an awful lot of accidents there, and UDOT has agreed to rebuild that intersection. And then COVID happened, and kind of nothing happened there. And then they had agreed to do it, but nothing had happened, and my stepson was in my car making a right-hand turn right there, and bang. Well, that car got totaled, so, and he was okay. But anyway, that is just about complete now, except for the landscaping, which is because of the time of year, I'm sure. But I'd been over to see our city manager, Matt, about the possibility of maybe putting up a small banner up there just to thank the city, in particular the mayor and UDOT. And I don't know who the contractors are, but even if we just said the contractors, I mean, there's a lot of people who use that road because the library and Front Runner's just down the street. And it's kind of be good, in my opinion, to let people know that their city is, you know, concerned about their safety and stuff like that. But also my main thing was to thank Mayor Dandoy for seeing to it that intersection was fixed, and it's just so much better now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. I normally don't do this, but let me just do an editorial, okay, if you don't mind. When Dale approached, he certainly was a victim twice at that intersection, and I had an interesting opportunity to see pictures. And if government is really going to be effective, it needs to listen to the residents who are really involved in what's happening in our community and look for ways to find improvement. I certainly was a little bit of a catalyst to help that, because it only took the UDOT engineers just a few days to realize that everything that Dale had been observing was in fact exactly right. Way too many accidents. So when the police report came out, we looked at those accidents, and by the way, it was only the ones that were reported. There's a good argument, it was stated that more than likely there was a lot more that would just kind of, they hit, got out of, you know, shook hands, see what they could do, and that. So, but there was enough that were reported to cause us to say this. And when we turned all of that in to UDOT, and their safety engineers looked at what happened and what was going on there, they also agreed, Dale, okay, everything you were saying, okay, was spot on. And that was all it took, okay? Yeah, we sent a letter here just to kick it off, showed pictures. But I'll be blunt with you. Had Dale not asked the question, okay, is there something we can do here? And just gathering a little bit of information, which we did, I'm telling you, it would not be fixed today. It would not be fixed. Because in all fairness, and this may seem a little rude, and I apologize if you're offended, but out of 40 people who basically say there's a problem, there's probably only one of that 40 people will ever step up and say something. And we're not smart. I mean, we know a lot of things, but we don't know everything. And so it took, in my opinion, Dale, your commitment to reach out that literally put that whole thing in motion. You want to put a banner up there? I'll tell you what, if you want to put my name on it, Dale, then right at the very bottom, you can say Mayor Dandoy. But at least 6 times the size of what you put my name in there, if your name was alongside mine, so they can see who really was the person who made the difference, I'll support that banner. But I'm telling you, this is exactly about residents engaging in terms of finding real solutions, because we are not the experts in everything. We need help. And when you're willing to help us, to point to it, it can make all the difference in the world. I'll put a sign at the end of that thing, and I will tell you, I'll call it Dale Street, because I'm telling you, Dale, you're the guy, not me. You're the guy that made that happen. That's my testimony tonight, okay? So anyway, thanks for the comments. Please, name and address.
Bill Norseth, 4389 South, 2525 West.
Perfect.
Okay, I got a problem. Last week, we had 2 underground crews go up the street. Well, this Fugle, they had a crew in there using a ditch witch and going underground. Well, they hit my water line. And it went in the air and they got it turned off. Roy City's water guy, which is Matt Howard, he come over. Nobody showed up from Fugle other than the crew. And then about 4 hours later, they got a Action Plumbing. So then they came and they left me without water, and they was going to leave me without water until Matt said no. He said, you get on it. So then they brought a track hole in that was too big for the yard. And Matt told them to go get another one. They went and got a small one. Then he had them lay a line on top of the ground. Meanwhile, I got a medical problem and a panic attack, and I ended up in the ER for a few hours. Okay, the first guy that showed up from Action Plumbing wanted to sell me a new water heater. I really wanted a new water heater. I wanted water.
Yeah.
And to this day, that Matt Howard, that water guy, as far as I'm concerned, he's a dang good employee. And I'm sure that most of Roy City's employees, right down to the bottom, are dang good. But then the city inspector come over and told him, well, you've got to do this and this. So Action, they left about 10 o'clock, I guess, that night. They was working way after dark. Meanwhile, out in the street, that was damaged too, and Matt Howard got that fixed. They had to dig a hole out there and close the road and everything else. Well, they hadn't done anything to what they were supposed to from the city inspector. So I called Matt, and he says, they haven't, I'll take care of it. Well, the next morning, Action Plumbing was out there doing what they should have. But I couldn't believe it when the first guy showed up with a track hole, wouldn't even go across my yard, wanted to sell me water heaters.
Amazing.
So then that guy that was running some crews for Fugle, Colby Freeman, he's helped. And Matt, like I say, he's a godsend to Roy as far as I'm concerned. And he needs a pat on the back as far as I'm concerned. But to this day, I don't know a phone number, I don't know address or anything else from Fugle or Action Plumbing. I have never been contacted other than the one guy on the crew. And then there was another guy on the crew that said, well, the guy that was supposed to do the measurements and check out depths and everything, they canned him for drugs. I never did see this guy, so I don't know. Now, why in the heck are we letting them go up through our neighborhoods, 2 in about 10 days? And what's that doing to my secondary water? I haven't even seen that till next spring. And who do I get a hold of to say, get in there and plant me a new lawn? I don't have a number, an address, or nothing. This is a bunch of noise. And like I say, let them go through in that frozen ground, and you ought to see my front yard over there. Hell, I got a mountain road going through there.
Wow.
But who do I get a number from to say, hey, come and fix my dang yard?
Bill, that's a good question. Let me offer a couple of solutions for that. First thing is that for Matt Howard, Brandon right there, who's his director, can certainly carry your message and tell Matt Howard that you appreciated his service, okay? And Brandon right there is the guy that can carry that message, okay?
As far as I'm concerned, Matt Howard is a godsend to Roy.
And it's wonderful you said that. He's also part of the Public Works organizations who is not necessarily responsible for digging up, but he can help be a communication, okay, to you to help make sure. But Matt, we got a lot of Matts in our organization, okay? I got a Matt Wilson, who's the attorney, and we got Matt Andrews, who's the city manager. He can also reach out to that particular company and help. I will tell you, you're not the first one that's had a real concern about a lot of this drilling that is occurring. And you're not the first person has the same concern we have, which is that secondary water's been turned off and they're going under. So we don't know if there's a leak or if they hit a pipe. We won't know that until it's turned back on. But we are going to be good servants here, that when this whole thing, the water gets turned on, and you and others, we believe, will be coming in and saying is, hey, they hit my second water line, then my concern's going to be is we got to help you to get that fixed.
Well, I know there's 4 places where they've dug up lines. They also might have, well, I don't think they got the infinity because I've still got no program, but who knows?
Well, we don't want to leave you left out there, Bill. The city manager, okay, not only knows the people in the company you're talking about, but bottom line is that we can reach out to them and indicate the concerns that you're experiencing. We certainly know that Brandon and his team, before they go out there and do that work, they have to go through a blue stake process, and Brandon's team is involved in that process. So I would ask you, okay, just reach out to them. And if you're not sure what their numbers are, then my comment would be is make sure you get their phone numbers that you can contact them before you leave tonight. We definitely recognize the problem. You're not the first one, and we're going to help you, okay, to find a solution to this. You certainly didn't cause that. Bill, they have a right through the easement process to come into our yards. They have that right. But they don't have a right, okay, to damage and walk away. They have an obligation to fix what they damage. And so we're going to hold them to that. We're going to hold them to that. So please keep us abreast of this. Let us see if we can help you on that. But Brandon and Matt Andrews, the city manager, are your contact points. They're the ones that should help carry your message. Fair enough?
Well, yeah, because to tell you the truth, I want my dang lawn fixed this spring.
I don't disagree.
And my 4 water lines fixed, and maybe more where they took that big track hole through.
I don't blame you. Whatever damage that happens, they need to fix that. They honestly do. I mean, I certainly would not allow that to happen in my yard, and you shouldn't allow it to happen in yours.
There were still 2, I think they said 2 squares of cement off the sidewalk still in the air too.
Okay, that's going to also be Brandon's, because that's a public work issue, and I certainly don't want sidewalks, okay, to be damaged.
Well, people are walking out in 4400, people coming over that hill is not fun.
Okay, well, we need to make sure that's fixed too, Bill, okay? We need
Thank
to make
you.
sure. Thank you.
Appreciate it, but Matt Howard needs a pat on the back.
And that's the man that can help make that happen, okay? Make sure you get phone numbers. Anybody else like to share, please? Okay, name and address.
Clark Roberts, 3581 West, 5350 South. I grew up in Ogden, but I married a proud 1980 graduate from Roy High.
And I'll bet you Ann knows who that is.
Margaret Russell. But I've shared with the council members a concern I have with CenturyLink in particular. Over this last summer, Connex came through, installed the fiber boxes, did a great job. Not Connex, but the rollout of the fiber optic that CenturyLink has done. I'm a current CenturyLink customer, and they have chosen to use large pedestals, 32 inches high by 12 by 12, and I'm asking for the council's help in maybe looking at some type of zoning or plan to not allow companies that do have the right to install that, but let's use the least intrusive method of putting those services in. I don't know how much detail you want me to provide to those who are here. I've provided some to the city council, but the boxes are really large. I contacted the manufacturer who creates the pedestal terminals, and they said that's the largest one that they make. They're putting one on each home. And I think that that's really unsightly and real obtrusive. And I did contact Lumens, the company that works with CenturyLink, and they replaced one of 3 of them on my property. There's 2 in the front and 1 behind. They said that if I wanted the other ones put in the ground, that they would charge $4,000 to replace those. My case might be a little too late. I did reach out to one of the workers, told me that they did Centerville City, just finished that. And Centerville had an agreement with CenturyLink that all of their work had to be underground, and they apparently honored that. I've provided the council with that agreement that Centerville used, as maybe we could mirror that. And I have the information of their attorney and the city recorder who provided that information to me. And how do we go forward? Is there something that I can do to help the process along, or is it something that the city council can address and maybe prevent future? It's made me much more aware of all of the ones that have been in the yards for years that are maybe no longer even used anymore. Can we do something maybe to clean up the yards? Because you can probably see one in every yard now from current or past, and why can't they be put underground to allow us to beautify the city? So that's kind of my comment. So how do we go forward? Is this something that the city council can address?
Well, that's a good question. Matt and I talked about it a little bit after we've seen some of your photos you sent to us and your comments. I will tell you, Clark, one of the requirements at this stage is everything that comes across that pulpit, okay, I write down, and then we start the process of flushing that out. Certainly, there's a legal component that has to be addressed. If it deals with ordinances, the city manager the city planner needs to assess it. We look at it in terms, is it a land use ordinance change, which means it has to be driven through the planning commission before it comes up to the city council for approval. There's a process we have to follow. But at this moment, we have your information. We certainly have your emails. I would ask you, give us a couple of days. It'll probably take a week or two for us to flush out what we can and cannot do. And then from that, we'll know the way ahead. And oftentimes, Clark, to be honest with you, we'll sometimes announce it right in these public meetings of what we've learned and what we plan to do. And so you certainly have got our attention. I appreciate you joining us because we need to see you and hear what you have to say and make a part of the public record. But with everything you've given to us, let us now see what our options are. I don't know if we have an option tonight until we actually start digging into it. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clark. Appreciate that. Okay. It's good to have you.
Thank you. I'm an alumni of 71. And you know who I was?
I got to have your name and address.
Oh, yeah. Dennis Brown, 2119 West, 6000 South, here in Roy. So I have three things I want to talk about.
Okay.
And most of them occurred last city council meeting. And the reason why I want to talk about them is I sat back in the back and listened to the council discuss items, and I raised my hand, and I never got called on to say anything. And I know that's your procedure to do that. I don't like the procedure, and I'm asking you to consider something different.
Okay.
But I do have a couple of suggestions.
Please.
I raised my hand during the e-bike presentation about riding your bikes on sidewalks, and also about the hours of the city parks being open and closed. That's when I raised my hand. And I know that Randy, who's not here, acknowledged me because he acknowledged that I ride e-bikes. And I think most of you saw me last time. And I think you'd like to hear what the citizens have to say, because I think it helps you as a city council make better decisions on how the members of the citizens feel about different things. And I voted for almost every one of you when elections took place, and some of you I voted for twice. And I just want to be able to be heard as a citizen. So what I want to talk about is that I think that after you discuss an ordinance, a proposed ordinance, and I know you only allow people to speak, citizens speak, in the opening of the city council, and then you close the comments. But I would make a recommendation that you allow citizens to speak before the council takes a vote on a procedure. I've came to many city councils over the years, and I don't understand all the criteria until I actually come and listen to the city council talk about it or hear what the planning commission has recommended. Once I hear that, my common sense kicks in and thinks, what's the best for the city? And I propose that you open up for public comment just before the council votes on something. I think last week we had myself and Glenda and a couple other people here. It was like 4 or 5 of us who are citizens here, and I don't think it'd hurt us to have someone speak up and say something during that before the vote. Okay, that was the first thing I wanted to talk about, Mayor.
Okay.
The second thing I wanted to talk about, you passed an ordinance for park hours last week. And I think if I remember correctly, the ordinance was passed to have the parks open only from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. Is that what I understood?
6 in the morning.
6 to 10.
Sorry, okay, 6 in the morning. Well, that's better. So I know the police officer gave a presentation. He made a mention of the parks, most of the parks in the area closing at 10 o'clock. Well, I personally went around to Sunset, Clearfield, and Clinton, and I also looked online. I checked out 11 different parks in the area. I did not check out all of them. I don't know all the parks, but I did check out online, and you're welcome to pull your phones up and verify what I have to say to you. But this is what I kind of found. I'm going to just go quickly. Rachel Runyon Memorial Park and the Sunset City Central Park, their website does not post an opening or closing time for the Sunset City Parks. But on their website, it shows a day by day, 7 days a week, hour by hour, the amount of people who use the park during a time frame, and they show people being there at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night at those two parks. In Clinton City, which includes 16 lighted pickleball courts, very big park, 4 softball/baseball diamonds, playgrounds, fishing pond. That park is open from 5:01 a.m. to 11:59 p.m., 7 days a week. And you know my oldest daughter, Ann, Matt, you may know her also, but they've been playing softball at Steed Park and the other Clinton Park for 20 years. And when they have their city tournaments, championship brackets, sometimes they're playing at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. And I've been there many times past 10 o'clock. And there's a lot of people in those parks after 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Clinton City Park, very large park over by Lowe's. On the sign over there behind their baseball diamonds, it reads that the park is open from dawn until dusk, except for when softball and baseball games are being played. So they're trying to accommodate the citizens of Clinton City over in that park there. And I know that the park varies in between springtime and summer and fall, but that's a very large park. Besides that, they have Frisbee golf and they have Boweries for dining and things like that. And it's a nice park. Anyway, some of those softball games over there also don't start until 10 o'clock at night because I've personally been there this last fall. West Clinton Park, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Civic Center, Clinton Park, 7 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. East Park, West Point, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Fox Hollow Park, Clearfield, 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. Nelden Hamblin Park, Clearfield, 5 a.m. to 12 a.m.
Let me ask you, Dennis, is there a particular time you think would be more appropriate?
Okay, that's what I'm getting to. Yes, my recommendation, I like the 6 o'clock idea. I was going to recommend 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. I know you used to have a park closing at 11 p.m., if I remember correctly. Is that right, Joe? And
The sign at Emma Russell says 11 p.m.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
The other thing I'm concerned about, so I checked 11 parks, and my recommendation was like at least 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. You know, you have the new pickleball courts, which are opening up over here at I call it the old North Park School, but North Park Park.
Yeah.
But before the pickleball courts are even opening, you're closing the park down at 10 o'clock. When I've been at Steed Park, there's 16 pickleball courts are busy at 10 o'clock and 10:30 as I'm leaving the park.
Yeah.
I think you'll have the same situation over there at the North Park Park.
Are there pickleball courts surrounded by a subdivision owned by houses?
They are not. They're back on the very east side of the park, up against I call it the Rail to Trails biking park. I bike on that path all the time. It's on a more quieter part of the park.
Right. And I know that's why, well, we won't have lights at George Wallen Park, but the Emma Russell Park, I think 10 o'clock, isn't that kind of our noise ordinance? And mostly, if we had a softball game going on, they wouldn't stop it at 10 o'clock. Obviously, they're going to let them play till 11 or 12 whenever they get done. But if it's a pickleball court, you know, where people are hearing those balls, you know, I think that's why we said 10 o'clock. But yeah, if there's events going on, they would never, it would go past 10 o'clock and we don't have lights there. But Emma Russell, isn't that because of the noise ordinance that they have that shut down at 10 o'clock? And if there's a tournament that we were hosting and it went into it.
I think they did say when they were presenting that if it's a sponsored event, then if it's permitted and sponsored, then whatever the time frame is.
Right.
Well, the question I wanted to raise when you was talking about last time was that, did you talk to the Parks and Recreation Department to see if they have softball games scheduled at 9 or 10 o'clock at night during the summer and the fall and the spring? If they do, people won't leave that park until 10 or 10:30 at night, maybe even 11 o'clock.
Right.
So if the Parks Department has games scheduled, and if they're like most of the city parks that are very busy in the summer and spring and fall, they probably have people, hundreds of people in the park until that time frame.
Yeah, and I think that we know that. And I think the main reason they were doing it was for just to get teenagers out of there. They're, causing havoc in our parks. But if there's obviously softball games and different events going on, they're.
Well, I'm just asking you to think about it and discuss it and try and see what you think about it. I mean, you guys make the ultimate decision. I just don't know if you thought of all the criteria that need to be thought about. Why have an ordinance to close the park if you're going to schedule a softball game at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night?
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Okay.
And you had a third.
I do. The last thing, sorry, Ann, I'm going to talk too
You're
much.
fine, Dennis.
I'll make this one quick. Claire and I own e-bikes. We love to go biking. We try to go biking 2 or 3 times a week here in the city, mostly on the trail down west in West Roy. And I'm excited to see where the railroad tracks are being removed and where they're going to have it there behind Harmon's and things like that. I'm really looking forward to that. The thing I wanted to bring up to you, I think the council voted to not allow e-bikes to be ridden on sidewalks last time. Is that what I understood?
No, we never did say that. We said we were going to wait and see, because we just knew the e-bikes would probably be on there. But if you're driving through a park, you're obviously just going to be pedaling. Unless you're going up a hill, you usually turn on your e-bike if you're like me.
Okay. Well, the thing I want to bring to you, when you do come to that decision of what you want to do, I want you to consider a couple of things. We're old. I
Yeah.
understand that. We're retired and we're senior citizens. And we look for ways to go use our bikes twice a week or so in Roy City. We love Roy City. And I'm at all the activities and a lot of things, as many of you know. So we live on 6000 South. We love to go to American First Credit Union instead of riding in the car, we go on our bikes. We love to go to the Roy Post Office, which is on 1900 West. We love to go to the county library, which is on 4400 South. In order for us to get to the post office, we go down the back roads, but eventually we have to come to 4400. Eventually we have to come to 4800 South or 1900 West to get to the post office. So at that point, because of the high volume of cars on those 2 streets, 1900 West and 4800 South, we choose to ride on the sidewalks for our safety.
Right.
The kids who are driving down that 4800 South, they kind of go fast sometimes, and the cars on 1900 West are speeding along pretty good. For about 3 blocks, we ride our bikes only on the sidewalk. Going to the library, we go on the back roads or on the park, on the bike path, till we come to 4400 South. No, 4000 South.
Correct.
Here again, you have heavy traffic on 4000 South. So as we climb the hill, going eastbound towards the library, we choose to ride the sidewalk again, which is about 2 or 3 blocks there, just for our safety, because there's so many cars, and that road is narrower. Okay. I think I've discussed all my challenges. I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Dennis.
Mayor, I just want to tell you thank you for your comments you made about the council, about thinking about all the criteria involved with riding the bikes. Because I know you talked quite a bit about let's make a good decision here. Then also, Mayor, I also appreciate the comments you had the fire department look up about a month or 2 months ago about being dispatched outside of our city and the finances involved to do that. And the fire department got back and gave you a review of how much they went out and how much people came in. I really enjoyed that comment and the comments made, and I really appreciate you looking into that. As a citizen who's always looking to keep the cost down, because I have multiple properties in Roy, I hate my property taxes going up. I hate to raise the rent, because I have to raise the rent every time you raise property taxes. One goes to the other. I appreciate you looking out for our dollars and cents.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, and we'll take as an action. You brought up some interesting points, and we'll go back and review those and see what we can come up with. Thank you, Dennis. Anybody else like to share a thought? Kevin, name and address, please.
My name is Kevin Homer. I live at 5398 South, 4000 West here in Roy. have just a couple of things that I wanted to offer some feedback on. In just a couple of minutes, one of the things that this group is going to be discussing is implementation of some changes through Resolution 24-2 that has to do with Title 13 and use of political signage. So about 2.5 years ago, when I decided I was going to run for public office, I was all excited and I got all my signs ready and I was going to throw them out in the yard. Come to find out, there was a city ordinance that said you can't put it out there until a certain very specific time frame. So this is 2021. Well, come to find out that in 2015, Supreme Court of the United States considered a case which was Reed versus the town of Gilbert, Arizona, where a person had been restricted in his First Amendment rights to put signage out because it had to do with some kind of a political campaign. Well, 2015 Supreme Court said that's not an appropriate thing to do, and this Resolution 24-2 is an attempt to set that right and put it in line with the Constitution and First Amendment. So when you discuss this, I'm sure that Mr. Parkinson will be very excited to hear a positive vote based on the recommendations of the Planning Commission. I would recommend very strongly that you approve 24-2. The other thing I wanted to mention, there's going to be also some discussion about implementation of the 5-year strategic plan here in Roy City. And I reviewed that document, and I was happy to see some of the positive action items that are planned to be implemented in 2024. But there's one thing that I would ask that we look at and possibly improve. In that chart, there's all the different sections with the goals about what should be implemented. And there's also one of the columns that has to do with expenses. Is there going to be an expense incurred? And it was simply a yes or no. Now, there's one of those items that has to do with economic development, and it has to do specific goal number 4, which has to do with improving our online economic development permitting and fees. In that column for expenses, it is marked as no. And that kind of concerns me because as a current geek and former software developer, I understand what it means to try to make changes to an online process. There is a lot of time incurred, whether it's from the staff of the city or a contractor that we pay. There will be expenses for every one of those. In my view, it doesn't matter whether it's at the federal, state, county, or municipal level, every single one of the things that we do incurs an expense.
That's correct.
And I would ask that we, instead of just a simple yes or no, most of the time that no is not really correct. I would prefer and I would ask that we show a minimum and a maximum estimated amount of money that it's going to take to implement all of those things.
Okay.
So that's my
Okay.
request. Let's be a little more specific and a little more correct in what it's going to cost us to implement those.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
And I will indicate to you personally that when I read through the resolution 24-3, I was thinking of you because that's right up your alley. I mean, you certainly have made comments along that line. So I think the city attorney is going to address exactly why we found ourselves in this situation that should follow. And then to your point about 5-year strategic plan, the intent is that it becomes now priority. Employees going to get paid. Whether they sit or do nothing or do something, they're going to get paid. Then it just becomes a priority of whether or not they get assigned this assignment or that assignment. And so if it's something we can do internally, those employees would just simply get the assignment to see if we can modify. But to your point, if we hire an outside contractor to come in and modify our program so that we can put application information on our website, then that's going to cost us. And I think to your point, we should make that clear, and we'll do better. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Anybody else like to share a thought? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to action items. We do have 2 of them. Specifically, consideration of ordinance 24-2. This is to consider amendment to the Title 13 sign regulation. My mistake, Kevin, it was actually 24-2 that deals with the sign ordinance. I believe City Attorney Matt Wilson is going to talk to us about that ordinance.
Yes, Mayor. As it was alluded to, there was some case law that impacted this, and so I know it went through Planning Commission, and the basis of this change is to remove those time limitations for political and campaign signs. And then also, the other big change is the site triangle. We do allow some signs, and they can't be content-based, and so now we're allowing other signs to be there, but it cannot impede the site triangle there.
Correct.
So that's really it. I don't know if Steve has anything else he wanted to add.
Okay. Steve, you want to make comment before I get comments from the council?
Yeah, the site triangle was, lo and behold, we had 3 definitions of what a site triangle was. 2 of them in the sign ordinance and 1 in the zoning ordinance. 2 of them, one in the zoning and 1 in sign, pretty much said nothing in there in the site triangle. And 1 of them did say, as long as the sign doesn't impede view. So when the planning commission looked at it, it says, well, impede whose view? Is it Ann's view, Sophie's view, my view, Matt's view? So to clarify it, they just went, okay, it's a kind of an all or nothing. We either let every sign in that site triangle or we let nothing in. So they went with the language of the zoning ordinance that says nothing taller than 2 feet. That way any car can still see through the site triangle, and then kind of leave it at that. So that's kind of what's before you, is what the zoning ordinance had verbiage on. So we changed the 2 in the sign code.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Council, any comments relative to this ordinance request?
I think it's good that we're following, what the Supreme Court said. Having been a candidate for as long as I have been, I will say people get sick of looking at signs. Kevin, I agree. It's your freedom of speech. But could you imagine if we had signs up from June to December this year?
Right.
I support it 100% because it's law. But I'll tell you, people will get sick of looking at them. And there will be that candidate that's the first one out there the day that person puts in for the election that'll put a sign out there. At some point, you kind of get sick of seeing them. But if it's law, it's law.
I agree.
So the signs can go up from June, but you don't have, after the election, there's no 2 weeks of taking them down. Now you can leave them up
I
as
could
long
put a
as you
sign up
want.
tomorrow, can't I?
Well, okay, Matt, please make sure you understand, because that's what you're about to tell us is really important, understanding what the change really means.
Yeah, that's correct. You
If
could put it
we
up.
file, I think there has to be a catalyst, which means if I walk in, sit down with Brittany, and I pay my $25 or whatever it costs me to run for office, at that very moment, that declaration says I have the freedom to put a sign in this city on that date. Is that a fair statement?
I don't even think that's a trigger, is it?
No, there's no trigger.
I could go put up a
event.
sign, Joe Paul, for whatever tomorrow, and nothing's stopping me.
Yeah, but there got to be a political connection to this, because I think it is the effort to have political, ambition, political, drive that's the limiting factor here. I mean, help me understand, because obviously, if your position is, and you're the expert, is that I can put my political sign up for any time and for any reason, then bottom line would be is it isn't June. It's any time from January 1st to December 31st on any issue, running for office or whatever.
I think it's a political either. Am I right? It's not political. And like if you drive around, I was driving around yesterday and I saw 3 political signs still left up from this last campaign. When do you take them? Like, when are you done? I don't know.
Yeah.
Were
so-
they in people's yards?
Yep. And yeah, they're around.
Okay, I promised Matt
I've
I
seen a few.
wouldn't jump into this conversation, but any sign on any issue, I certainly would like to go out there and distribute those in my garage sale signs. Certainly, I have a garage sale I want to do. I don't think I can under the current ordinance. But if there's a political position, I can do it any time, on any day, to do that. And whether or not I ever take those down is not an issue. That whole piece was taken out of that political sign ordinance.
And here's another situation. You've got signs for businesses, whatever it is, daycare, yard sale. There's no, if
So-
our city could be
There's
I think this is
Over-inundated
just
with it.
Hold on
pertaining
a
to
second,
campaign
If I
signs.
may, yes, this is, but you can
Okay.
also put limitations that are what we call content neutral on the signs. So you can say only one sign per yard or no signs in residential. Campaign signs are gonna be treated a little differently than that in residential areas, but you're ultimately gonna be leaving it up to the property owners if they want to keep those signs up. For me, I know a number of people that put the sign up or allow that sign to be placed in their yard. They have the right to go take that sign out at any time because it's their yard.
Yes, their yard.
Right.
But so I just want to make sure it's clear because as Joe indicated, we all ran for office. And the restrictions were 90 days prior to the election or the primary, you're allowed to put them out. And 15 days after the election or you're required to pick them up. What, if it's tied only to political signs, which is my understanding, what we just heard is there is no date of when you can put them up or if you even have to take them down.
And we can't put any restrictions on it based off case law, can we?
Correct.
That's the change they just did us.
Because I was going to say it would make sense to once you file, but if you can't put any restriction on it, then
Okay,
our hands are tied.
then I would say, welcome to a whole new world. Never thought I'd see this. Okay. Great comments. Council, anything else? Okay, with that, then, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 24-2 to consider amending the Title 13 sign regulation, amending, okay, the Chapter 4 political and campaign signs and visual clearance triangle?
So moved.
Thank
I'll
you.
second
And
that.
I have a motion to approve, and Joe gave me a second. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Saxton,
Do I have to go first? Yeah.
You're okay
I
with
vote
it?
yay.
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Okay. That motion's approved. Ordinance 24-2 is going forward. Now we consider resolution, 24-3. This is a resolution adopting the interlocal agreement between Roy City Corporation and Weber County approving and authorizing the execution of interlocal agreement for paramedic service. Mike, please.
Right, yeah, this is, like you said, for 24-3. We have been going along with this resolution that we have. This is just a new one, a new year. They go up every 2 years. It's to provide a paramedic service within the county. It's with Weber County and ourselves. We have a board, an advisory board that meets quarterly to decide what is best within Weber County and Roy City in the area for paramedic service. Right now that we've agreed to fund 8 positions here at Roy City. And even though Roy maintains 12, we have to maintain 8 part of the city, and it runs the west side of the county or the neighboring cities for paramedic service. Right now, Weber County, Ogden, and ourselves are all on part of this advisory board. And so this is to continue for another 2 years. The only thing that they did add this year is they added another $50,000 to the budget. So it was $500,000 that the county with the program, but now they went to $550,000 with the cost of everything going up. So we meet and determine to make sure everything is consistent with the services provided. Doesn't matter if you get an Ogden rescue here, a Weber rescue here, or a Roy rescue. Everyone provides the same service with the same equipment. So this is just resolutions just to continue that for another 2 more years.
Okay. Council, any comments or questions?
So Roy City gets $550,000 a year for the paramedic service.
So so they subsidize equipment
Right.
and also labor costs and everything dealing with a paramedic unit.
And then if you don't get called out that much or it doesn't use all that money, do you just get to hold it over or
No,
put
it's
it?
all based upon a rotation. So all of their vehicles that they drive, any maintenance that's got to be done, any equipment that's got to be updated because they have a service life that gets rotated out, their ventilations and life packs and extrication equipment and everything's all in there. So everything has a service life, and it's what they've determined the budget from the county and the advisory board is what it costs to run 5 rescues throughout the county.
And so do they check your budget, or is that something you have to turn into them at the end of the year, every year?
We work on the advisory committee, we work with them, and we budget to replace, like a life pack this year. We'll replace a rescue truck next year. We'll replace a ventilation this year. So between all entities, between Weber, Ogden, and us, we all have to split this money.
Okay.
And then we have to, a portion of it goes to a vehicle. We know it's gonna be a big budget year this year, so maybe we don't buy as much in small equipment and move everything over.
Have they said anything more about the study where they were thinking about adding another rescue unit to Roy?
So that was part of this. We met with, we had them come in and do a study for us. And at this point, their recommendation was not to change anything. The near future, as the west side builds up, we will be encouraged to add another rescue unit to the west.
Okay. Mike, just a question for me. Certainly the $550,000. But do you all have the opportunity to also bill the insurance company if you're doing a paramedic rescue?
So each rescue that goes out and goes with an ambulance on a transport, there is a fee. So it doesn't matter if it's a Roy ambulance, a Clinton ambulance, a Weber ambulance, a Riverdale ambulance, that fee is the same.
Okay.
What if somebody doesn't have insurance? That's probably a dumb question, but who pays for that?
Well,
Yeah.
they everything goes through the insurance, and then but it is the right of the transport people on how it's handled, you know, with insurance or non-insurance, or how
Okay.
the money is, because we have had people with it's hardships that can't
Right.
They
some
can't
of it-
pay for it, yeah. Okay. Okay, Mike, great job. Council, any other comments or questions relative to this resolution?
Nope, sounds
Okay.
like a good one.
Perfect. Then, do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 24-3?
So moved.
Thank you, Sophie. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Ann. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Okay, Resolution 24-3 is approved. Thank you. Okay, we have some discussion items that we want to walk through, specifically EMS license in West Haven and Hooper. Matt, I believe you're going to talk to us about this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Historically, Royce City has held the EMS license for Hooper and West Haven. That is the district, the fire district. Weber Fire District has that area for fire suppression down there, but Royce City has always ran our ambulance services down through there to do their transports. Weber Fire District did have a meeting with myself, Chief King and Chief Williams, and they were asking and requesting Royce City to just release that that license agreement to them so they could run that service for those two cities. This conversation is just meant to be informational for right now. What that would mean to Royce City is we've been running some numbers, and it could mean that we would lose about $250,000 a year in that additional revenue for running that service. What we would like to do is bring our provider that does all of our medical billing into Royce City to a city council meeting. We've been increasing, steadily over the last couple of years, about 10%, but we want to discuss what this potentially could do to Royce City. If Royce City does sign that letter, they want to make it effective July 1st. If Royce City does not sign that letter, they can petition the state, and the state would make the determination of whether or not we release that over to West Haven. They would basically have to prove that the service that they can provide is better than that of Royce City. Not meaning level of service, but basically the time it would take them to get to that call. Their plan right now is to put a service down on 4,000, kind of by Dallas Green. They have a temporary fire station. And in the future, they have two other fire stations that they would like to build in that area, one off of Midland Drive and one off of 5500 South. So I wanted to just bring this to the city council's attention because it is a big deal with $250,000 affecting our budget. But this is pretty primary in the discussions, and we don't know which way we are going to move forward. So,
Okay, council, you have any comments or questions about this?
Well, have they started building those other places yet? So
To my knowledge, no. I think they have acquired land for those 2 other stations.
I think my biggest concern is we've staffed up and geared up for it, and now all of a sudden they want to take it away from us, and we still have to pay the bill of staff and equipment.
Valid concern.
Well, and
Go ahead, Brian.
what has our response times been? I mean, have they been good to those two
I think
cities?
they're very reasonable to those 2 cities, yes, because we have the other station down at 32 that can provide a reasonable service for them.
Yeah, and you're correct. There's some of the areas in Hooper and West Haven that are actually closer to our lower station than what they currently have.
Oh, okay,
So
all right.
they're going to build it off of based on where your station location is on how close you are to the incident address. So right now at 63 on 4700 and 4000 is where they're going to house the first ambulance for temporary until the other 2 stations get built in a couple of years.
And that's down at the Dallas Green facility, okay? But you caught my attention when you basically said down 5,500, so I assume that'll be deep into Hooper. Is a
55
plan
and
for
55.
station. On 55. And then you said Midland. Now, Midland's a stone's throw from our west, okay, fire station. What I think I'm hearing you say, and council, you need to think about this, we're talking about putting another fire station with the an ambulance service somewhere on Midland Drive, okay, which is really, really close, okay, to our borderline right there.
At 3600 in Midland is where the property.
Is that where it is,
Right next-
3600?
Right next to the church.
And let me just ask a basic question. Do we not have interlocal agreements with West Haven and Hooper to provide service?
We've just always had that EMS license to provide that
So
service.
the EMS license
Yes.
allows us to then be able to do that. Do we have any other agreements for fire protection other than
We
Middle
have
East?
for fire suppression in that interlocal agreement, yes.
So quick
Okay.
question on that. How do you, with the employees, if taking away the 200,000, do we lose employees?
Well,
Possibility.
you know, you look at how much money is actually being generated over in the fire department for these transfer services, and it's just a portion of it. You know, I don't have the numbers, you know, at my fingertips, but this is just a small portion of it, I would say.
Yeah, but
Because
I think to Sophie's point, Matt, you just took 250,000. If we agree to that out of the revenue stream, it seems to me the biggest expense we have in Roy City is labor.
Human capital, yes.
And we just took that revenue away, and they're saying is they don't want us to basically, or the state, or they don't want us to be licensed to go down there. Then if they're not going down there, then I'd have to ask the hard questions. Why would you have the 2 or 3 extra people that we're paying for if in fact that revenue that we use to pay their salary and keep them going is no longer available?
So if you do close down a unit, let's say you close down a unit down at 32 or something, you would lose out on potentially other revenues as well because they're running other calls and not just this. It's just a small portion of it. In a nutshell, they'd be less busy. But if you take it completely out, you're going to jeopardize other transfer revenue associated to it, plus take away stacking in the fire department to suppress other fires and things like that as well.
So I see this as a double-edged sword.
Correct.
You're
Yes.
just, Sophie, to your point, there's no win-win here. If we lose that license and it's taken away, we lose the revenue. But more than likely, the chiefs will come in and simply says, I got to retain the people.
Well,
Which
so
means-
is the county, is West Haven City and Hooper City, their taxpayers, their citizens are paying to build these two?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gotten too into the history of how they're building it, how they're getting the finances and things. But right now, it's a special service district that is taxing both of those cities.
Right.
So it's governed by its own board, not necessarily their city council.
Wasn't there an assessment, a Weber Fire assessment a while back ago, because I remember when we brought unincorporated residents into Roy, they still had to pay that fire assessment.
So, yeah, if I remember correctly, because that was a while ago, the assessment for the fire district operations went away on those residents. However, if I go bond, like Roy City bonds, and then you do a property line adjustment, that GO bond sticks
Stays
to
with
that
them.
property owner. So just like now, I'm guessing I'm guessing that when they build a new fire station, they're gonna have to bond, and that would stick to those residents.
Right.
Because it would be a separate assessment on their property taxes.
So the location where they're building, is that where we're expanding 3,500 from the state? I mean,
If it's next to the church, it's far enough
It's
west.
far enough
Oh, is it?
west,
Okay.
yeah, it
One
wouldn't
house
be.
in between.
But it does create an argument that simply says that when you put these fire stations, okay, so close in proximity, and I'm looking at this as a taxpayer because it's going to be a taxpayer bill to build it, you start to ask the harder question is, what value does putting a brand new fire station within a stone's throw of our fire station really do? It just simply suggests to me that you're just billing, okay, the public, whether that be through a GO bond or whatever, you're billing the public to build another station that probably is not going to be fully utilized because Roy City's already providing that service.
Right.
And so to me, it's just, I hate to say this, but it's kind of a waste of money. Is there not a better place in Weber County by which they can build a fire station than right next to our fire station?
right, because the one clear out on 5,500 West in Hooper, I mean, that's far enough out there that
Exactly.
probably help. As
Put it
much as
down there
that's
by that
growing out there,
elementary.
but the one on West Haven, yeah, it's just too close to ours.
It
Just
makes
isn't-
no sense.
And us at Roy City, we really can't speak to that because we're not making those decisions.
Agreed. That's a West Haven and Hooper issue, but
Yeah.
man, Chief, I don't like this, okay? I don't think it's the best way to suit public money, and I think it basically creates a real problem. Okay, this is gonna require some conversation, okay? Anything else for Matt? Okay, obviously more to come. There's some questions needs to be answered. Thank you, Matt. Community book box. Council, I believe you read the worksheet in there. It's just a kind of a request. We'll move on it if it gains traction, but do you see any issues if the Boys and Girls Club have an interest to put a community book box right there by a municipal park?
The only thing I was thinking about is just like when I was driving the other day past the blessing box and a bunch of little kids were in there going through it, and the crossing guard for Lakeview had to go run them off.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And I don't know, Glenda, if you've had problems with kids getting in there and getting stuff, but I just know how kids are sometimes. Hopefully they would treat it right and not get the books out and throw them on the ground and do that. I mean, we have the library that close, but I guess I might as well give it a shot and see if it works.
If it's sponsored by the Boys and Girls Club, would it be better to put it inside the door and people can have access when it's open?
Yeah, I think a more controlled place. I just know how kids can be because, I mean, they still do stuff like that at the high school. So, but, I mean, I guess it's something that could be tried.
Well,
Quick
it's
comment.
just,
Oh.
what do you think? Go ahead, Sophie.
So I don't know how many of you know this, but the blessing boxes are taken care of by Glenda
Yeah.
more daily, weekly. And so I don't know if no one has that connection to these boxes. I can see a lot of stuff being dropped off. I can see a lot of, she cleans that out all the time. So I don't know.
Who's going to take ownership
Yeah,
of
who's
it?
going to
Well,
take
it's gotta
care
be
of
the
it?
Boys and Girls
Because
Club.
it's
It
not-
certainly can't be
box,
Roy.
too.
I think
Yeah.
it
I mean,
needs to go
it-
closer to a Boys and Girls Club facility and
Right.
have them take ownership of it, because if it's over there, I don't think anybody is
It
gonna.
almost ought to be right out in front of the
Right
Boys
out
and
in
Girls
front of
Club.
their-
I think so too. I think it needs to be over by the
But
Boys and Girls.
There's a
Club.
lot of things we have we have a beautiful library. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
And
disagree.
they don't get charged to get
But I don't
books
know
from
if you
there,
can
but
donate books to a library where I think
Can't donate them. not very often anyway. They're very selective on what they do and don't take. But I know there's a lot of people, there's a couple of library book boxes over in our neighborhood, and it causes a lot of stress, and you get a lot of negative comments and a lot of Facebook and social media because of what goes on with it.
Okay.
And I don't want it to be portrayed as a city
Not a city.
function, an event, or
Yeah.
a sponsored thing, because I don't.
Yeah, the intent would be is only the city council would approve it, if you're supportive of it, but take no ownership of it, okay, and no responsibility for it. But it's just in the city. But I think what I'm hearing from you, if you agree that at least as a potential, it needs to be closer to the front door of the Boys and Girls Club, which is roughly about 20 feet, 30 feet
Here.
away.
Easier for them to take care
that's
of.
what I
Okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brian, any comment on that?
Do you know?
I think that would make sense. I mean, my fear is in these changing times, who monitors what books go in there too? And I mean,
Don't know.
I don't know. I'd hate to see. I mean, I write books, and by the way, they are available at the library, but I think it's plug, but that might be opening Pandora's box.
Well, I think, to your point, I think anytime you have these public access to stuff, which is certainly what we see in the Blessing Box, we certainly see with the books drops that are around the city, that it's open to whoever is managing it or looking at it and monitoring it. The question is going to be is, I'm sensing, and it's absolutely correct, Roy City as an entity is not going to manage it. But by the same token, is Roy City really needs to, because this is Roy City property. It's not a person's front yard or some private property. It's Roy City property, and Roy City Council just needs to simply say, you know what? If you want to put a box at this location and you're willing to manage it, then the question is, are you okay with that? Because I certainly am not going to restrict what goes in or doesn't go in. I'm not going to do that. I don't think you should either.
Right, and if we have somebody drop off a bunch of books that maybe aren't very appropriate, it's all in the eye of the beholder on what you think's appropriate or not.
Yeah.
But some little kid could maybe take out a book and take it home, and his mother have a cow because of the book he just wrote home.
Well,
but we don't want that to fall back on us.
There are other little library boxes throughout the city, but I think somebody has kind of ownership to them.
That's right.
And so
That need
if
to
the
be
Boys and
monitored.
Girls Club want one, I think they put it out in front of their location and they're the monitors and
Yeah.
Do you know why they picked that school specifically? Or they just, maybe that school needs help with books? I mean, if that's the case, then maybe
I don't. The best I can tell is probably not necessarily targeted at that school, although I do believe that is a. I have to think what the name of
Like a Title I school?
Title I school, but certainly the location I think was because it's such a routine stop because of the Blessing Box is right there. People stop there. Kids walk back and forth from there. But I think, Joe, to your point would be is if it happens to be a little closer, so they can monitor it a little closer, do a little bit more of that observation, then maybe they take more ownership rather than sending it off, okay, over
yeah,
the
because the
Memorial
one little
Park.
library I'm thinking of is right in somebody's front yard.
Yeah,
I mean, they've developed it
They
themselves.
respond to it, yeah.
So.
Just give me a head nod, because
Yeah.
there's nothing official here, only that you're okay with them moving forward, and then once they decide, we'll bring it back to the council with the final selection of place and how they plan to manage it.
So was this the Boys and Girls Club's idea to begin with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you okay with all that?
Yeah, as long as it's over by them.
Okay. Okay,
And
we
they
got
take
that?
care of it.
Yeah, and they take care of it.
We now have a 5-year strategic strategy plan. The council, Matt and I will talk about this. Let me just introduce it just real quick. If you remember back when we approved the 5-year strategic strategy plan, one of the conditions of that would be is that we'd take a pause. And the pause was simply says, we got it approved, now let's figure out what our next step. But in January, We would bring it back in January and look at which elements of the 5-year strategic plan we wanted to implement. And in July, shortly after we approved the budget, we will go ahead and look at modifying, deleting, or changing the 5-year strategic plan as we move into that execution period, which will start on July 1st. And so this is the January that says, okay, here's the things we'd like to pursue. If you look at that, we highlighted the areas that the city staff believes are areas we'd like to at least try to implement, and those things are highlighted in yellow. And the question we have would be is, first, do you see anything in that list that you feel uncomfortable about us going ahead and moving forward with? Or if you believe there are certain things in there, I should say and/or, that you probably need a little bit more data in order for you to be able to continue to say support it, we can certainly take those as action items to come back to the council to get final approval on which ones we start the implementation on. So any comments, your thoughts? It's just a discussion. We just need some direction about the 5-year strategic strategy plan. Brian?
Can we add to that plan?
Yes. At any point in the process, we talked about doing that in July, because you're going to need to make sure going in when the budget process is going to be approved, if there's something you think is important that needs to be added, we would add that as part of the July, because on that approximate same date, you will be basically approving, the 24-25 budget, and those things that may require some money, we would add it into the 5-year strategic strategy plan. But here's the important part. We knew going into this plan, not everything would be worked in 2024. We would simply pick the ones that we think are ones we'd like to start focusing on and leave everything in the plan so that some later date, maybe some additional money that we can do. But it also gives you the window to say, I want to add something, and also the window that simply says, I don't think this is of value anymore, and we remove it. So you have some flexibility there. This conversation really is about, is there anything you see of the ones that have been highlighted that maybe, just maybe, we should get more information, or you just really feel like we really shouldn't try this year?
Well, several of the things highlighted are already in progress and being worked.
Exactly.
And just going through the rest of them, I agree with where we start off. That's a good springboard to get us going on this.
I was going to ask you on the Main Street, do we have any say as a city to, like, some of the buildings that don't look so nice on 1900? Can we go in and tell the landlords, can you do something to make these look nicer, or is that something that...
Brody, I can certainly answer, but maybe you can answer. This is talking about any type of beautifications or improvements we'd like to see in downtown.
Yeah, so to answer that question, the main way that this body would do that is by the zoning ordinances and your codes, right? So, yes, we can, but they have to be breaking a law. And then, quite frankly, we have to have the resources to patrol that, police that, and follow up with enforcement on that.
Okay, Matt, you want to add anything to that?
I think Brody did a great job with it. I think if we get pretty heavy-handed, there's tools that we can do stuff with when it's blight and things. I don't know if we're willing to go that far. We definitely can have conversations with people, but I think, like what Brody said, they have to be basically breaking an ordinance for us to do something about it.
Right.
Well, and there's some potential developments coming in the near future that could change a lot of that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So to redraft and recreate an ordinance and then try to go out there with boxing gloves and enforce it, I think 2024 is going to be a changing point in downtown Roy.
So I see on the remodel Roy West Park, but it's not highlighted, but that is so overdue to be remodeled. So how could we do a grant for, I don't know what our grants are being written up for right now. Probably fix the water toy at the aquatic center. That's probably one of the big ones right now, huh? But in the
Something
future,
like
hopefully
that.
we can do.
Yeah, something like that. It's on that 5-year strategic plan because in the future, we do want to do something about it. I think the grant is the best option. Right now, we're doing, like you said, the aquatic center. Maybe that's something that we could look at next year
Yeah.
of putting in the ramp grant for Roy West because it is very overdue.
Yes.
However, it's going to be very costly, and we would like to get not only Roy City money, but other monies is available to do something with it.
Right.
So
So I assume, I haven't been to the parks for a while and haven't noticed, are the honey buckets, do they get rid of them in the winter?
They're gone.
They're
Yeah, they're
gone.
all gone.
So they just put them, as soon as soccer starts, like in the spring, they'll put the honey buckets back. I just know I had a friend that went to watch her granddaughter play in the spring, and there was no honey bucket, and she had to miss half the
Yeah.
game to find a bathroom.
we're hopefully, like Emma Russell, we have the plan with the cameras and the different things. A lot of that process have already been started to put the cameras in, and there's a big pole over there with the camera, and so hopefully we could just reopen the bathrooms and not have the problems that we've had in the past.
This was Roy West Park where they were specifically playing soccer.
And
so-
those bathrooms are in pretty bad shape too.
Yeah, so that's why I was wondering about the honey bucket. When
Yeah,
soccer
that-
starts, do they get the honey buckets out there?
Usually, yeah, so I would say when we usually open the bathrooms, if they're in disrepair, that's when we would put the honey buckets out. And that's usually what, spring and then take them away in the fall.
And
close them
AYSO or whoever plays there let you know when they're going to start, Michelle, so you can get.
We let the soccer community know when our secondary water will be on and bathrooms will be available. They may choose to try and schedule games prior to that, because I know they try and start mid-March, so there
But-
is a time frame that just water's not available.
Yeah, because specifically Roy West, we couldn't open them anyway. That's the park I'm talking about. So,
My goal is to not put porta potties out there. Now, what the vandals tell us will be another story, but
so are those workable bathrooms at Roy West?
they need some work on in there, but they're close.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be great.
One of the things, objective number 2, community image, cohesiveness, and pride, is implementation of beautification projects and landscape. I know something's coming. Is that going to be formally discussed in council meeting? Because I have some recommendations.
For our beautification committee?
Yes. and
Yes,
that's-
we're having a
exactly it.
meeting coming up here in
I think it's next week.
January
yes.
24th.
Yeah.
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 So to your point, yes, the beautification committee is scheduled. We'll take up the issue about what you're suggesting before we bring that formally to the city council for their input and comments and final approval.
I'd just like to see the program whittled down a little bit.
Well,
It's a great program, but too long and too comprehensive.
Well, and
Well, we're changing it from June to September, so instead of
we'll-
May.
Yeah, we'll flush some recommendations out. Remember, the beautification committee is only an advisory group, and so ultimate responsibility for that rests with the council. Brian, you had a comment?
I do. Municipal Park, a couple of years ago, we talked about getting some solar trail lights for the west side of the park where there's heavy trees. Some of the neighbors have said that because of that dark side of the park, there's oftentimes nefarious activity that goes on, and maybe a trail light or two through that stretch would go a long way. And I know that we had looked at that when I was on the previous term, but I wasn't certain what came of it. And when I didn't see it in the 5-year plan, I kind of panicked. So, have you heard that before about trail lights?
Well, no, she's brand new.
Okay, because on the far west side of Municipal, there's those big trees that surround the walking trail. And they were just hoping to get some kind of light back there that A, would deter youth from being back there, and B, to make it much easier on the police to be able to see past those trees and be able to more closely monitor that strip.
Yeah,
Would it-
we did have the project over there with Municipal Park, and some of the lights that we looked into weren't in the budget, so we try to simplify it and do something, you know, like the solar lights and things. One of the concerns that we kept on coming up with is with all the damage that's going on with the parks, if we put something at ground level, it's going to be damaged. We try to look at lights to run wire in there, and it was very, very costly.
That's right. I
So
remember
the
that.
best alternative was the solar lights, and it always came down to thinking that they would probably last a couple of weeks and then get damaged and then be taken out.
And if you put something up too high, then the neighbors
Yeah,
might
it
whine that
bothers
their
the
whole
neighbors.
backyard's lit
We
up.
did have a town hall meeting in that area, and the lights in the park were discussed, and I remember there was a lot of reservations with doing some bigger lights in the area because they didn't want it shining in their backyards. So I know that was a concern from them.
That's right.
But to your point, Brian, one of the things we can do is we can put anything into the plan. So if we believe that needs to be done, then certainly we can readdress a town hall discussion if necessary, get public input and decide how we want to move forward in terms of finding that. But to your point, that west side in the middle of the night is dark, and I doubt anybody that should be there ought to be there, okay? So there needs to be a solution. It's just not a good solution at this moment. But if there needs to be wire, let me just be blunt, if there needs to be electric lights put in there, and it's the council's decision, that's probably what needs to happen, approve the budget, make it happen, okay? Just approve to make it happen. I mean, that's all you have to do.
Maybe that's a grant we can put in for next year.
Certainly can,
That'd be
to make any
great.
improvements to Municipal Park.
I mean, I
Yeah.
just-
Do you sense anything that you've read here that's been highlighted that you need some type of follow-on information that may help you before we simply lock things down? Some of this is really kind of low-hanging fruit. Joe, as you mentioned, some of these have already started. I'm expecting Michelle is going to give us a date here in the spring when we're going to go out there and buy the pickleball nets, and the George Wallen North Park pickleball courts will be done. We're that close. And so not a lot more expense into this, but they will certainly be one of the tag items in our objectives here. It'll be one of them that we'll be able to complete. And so a lot of these are already in motion. So, and you already gave us approval to some extent about making the appropriate upgrades on the aquatic center. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but Matt will talk this in a second, but we submitted a grant request, okay, that's going to fund what we need to do in terms of the aquatic center to make the changes.
Another thing on grant requests, not only municipal, but maybe we can put a grant in to put lights at the pickleball courts at George Wallen. Maybe you can lump park lighting together into one grant.
Could do that too. The key would be is we have some options, but what we'd like to do is we'd like to take these on that have been highlighted and start the process that simply says, can we implement those? What's it going to take to implement based on our plan? And then have you agree to that. Or if you believe this says, hey, I've got this concern about this one or that one, that either you think it's probably not appropriate to move forward at it on this year, that's fine. Or if you believe that, hey, I want more information before I can make a decision, that's fine. We just want to make sure that you're okay at this moment, that we can start making motion and moving towards getting some of these things we've highlighted in this 5-year strategic strategy plan started. And in case, as Michelle's case, finished, because we believe we're going to have some of these finished within the next few months. Anything you see is something that's going to be a showstopper for you?
No.
Okay, well, our game plan would be is we start the movement, but more importantly, we report. So as we move through these that you've given us authority, we'll start the process. If we see any hiccups, we'll report it, but you'll get an update as we start moving to start completing these tasks. And, Brian, to your point, if you see something else that's important that comes up, please, let's add that, okay, to the long-range planning so that we capture it, even though it may not get done this year or maybe in the next few years. Okay.
So Mayor, I see the roundabout at 6,000. When are they gonna actually ever start on that?
Isn't that this year? It's
Brandon, Matt?
They're already going through a lot of the process, so we have a lot of the land. Last I heard, they were doing the environmental impact study, is that correct?
Yeah, and the noise ordinance as well, we have to go through too. So anytime we get federal grants, there's a billion steps we have to go through. So now there's a noise ordinance thing that we have to go through as far as they go through and make sure that it's not gonna significantly increase the noise, I guess. I don't know, it's a government step.
So let me
traffic, whether you.
Right.
Yeah, let me just make sure we repeat, Brandon, what you said. Because of federal funding, it's going through the environmental impacts process because federal grants require that. And once we get through that, then we can start to see more activity to be able to get that 6,000 and 3,100 roundabout in.
Yeah, like Matt said, we've already purchased the property. So.
Right.
Wasn't it scheduled for this year?
But we got the money moved up, yes.
So the original funding was scheduled for this year, that we'd be able to start buying the land. So we're actually technically ahead of that schedule for getting that moved up, thanks to Mayor Dandoy.
So it possibly could be done by summer, end of summer? No.
But the
This year, you think?
The best time frame I can give you is hopefully we'll go out for budget or for bid next fall. I mean, we like to try and put them out for bid in the fall and winter because that's when we get our best price.
Okay.
And
This fall or next fall?
This coming fall.
Okay.
So 2025.
Okay.
2025 is what we're hoping for. Like you said, it's super frustrating on our part as well because there's so many steps.
Yeah, that just seems silly. A noise ordinance, I mean, that's just cars just going a different direction. I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, it's frustrating for us as well, and all these steps that we have to. But
I mean, it makes more noise when it hits that house on the corner than it would.
Yeah, we've had some concerns with that. But Ann, to your point, we'll report our progress. And as it starts to come to fruition, because we've highlighted and would like to continue moving, we'll give you an update. So we certainly want to go when the RFP goes out and a contract's been let, that would be a major milestone that we're really getting close to get this done. Okay? Everybody okay with that then? We move forward? Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we're going to talk about traffic survey result. Chief, I think you're going to help us on this one.
You want me to just run with it? Okay, I'm just going to run with it. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Over the last, coming up 3 years, one of the biggest complaints I get is related to traffic and speeding in neighborhoods in particular. So I'm just going to go over this data, and then I'll maybe just kind of turn over to questions for you because I don't want to inundate you with information you're not necessarily too concerned about. But in the several speed studies we've done over the last 3 years throughout the city, it kind of mirrors what we're seeing here. And so Captain Smith went out to the locations that have been of recent concern, which is 2275 west between 4800 south, 5200 south, 2700 west between 5600 south and 6000 west. That one's a frequent flyer on our list. And then we had someone ask us to go out to 2275 west between 6000 south and Sunset. And so the data you're looking at the number of cars total that were evaluated. And then you're going to see cars that were above the speed limit, but below a particular number. So for instance, if you look at 2700 west between 56 and 6000 on July 29th, you're going to see that we looked at the number of cars that were under 40 miles an hour. The speed limit on that road is 30. But we're looking at what we call the tolerated speed, meaning officers aren't typically going to stop a vehicle until it reaches a certain speed, and that's typically around 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. So we don't typically account for tolerated speed. What we're interested in is those particularly egregious offenders, which are going to be above the tolerated speed. And at that particular location, you see about 3% of drivers. Now, if you're looking at the tolerated speed versus the egregious speed, you're going to see 2275 between 48 and 52 on November 28th. 3% of traffic was above the tolerated speed. On the 29th, 2% of traffic was above the tolerated speed. On the 30th, 2% of traffic was above the tolerated speed. In all the speed studies we've done over the last 3 years, including these, we're finding that the tolerated speed is about, or the egregious speed is about 2 or 3% of drivers. Those are the ones that we're interested in stopping. If we stopped everybody at the tolerated speed, we'd be stopping everybody and probably some of you. So we typically don't look at tolerated speed. We're looking at those egregious offenders. Now, some of the reasons that you might be getting complaints, or some of the reasons why people may feel that the problem is much larger than it really is, can depend on a lot of factors. Environmental conditions such as road width, are they tree-lined streets versus open neighborhoods? The size of the vehicle, the shape of the vehicle, road noise that it makes, exhaust noise that it makes. So all those can, make a vehicle sound or appear as if it's going faster than it really is.
Okay, Chief, thank you. Council, any comments?
I'm just surprised you don't pull anybody over for 10 miles. I always thought, I shouldn't say this, but I'm kind of a 5-mile over driver.
I was thinking the tolerated was 5.
But 10 miles, so 2275, that's the road that runs into the seminary. That's the road I go on every day. Yeah. But I'm really good on that road. But, yeah, so it doesn't really look like it's that bad of a situation.
So, from an enforcement standpoint, we look at enforceability, right? And when we looked at all these other studies that we've done in the past, there's a clear delineation between tolerating a particular speed and then going after the egregious offenders. And you can actually see that slough off quite significantly. And so when we look at the tolerated speed, again, you can see that the majority of vehicles are traveling within that tolerated speed. Those aren't the ones we're concerned about. We're concerned about the egregious ones.
Okay. Well, I think question we have to ask ourselves, okay, the chief is performing all these surveys. So, and a lot of times those surveys is because we requested those. And you bring them up, so I certainly have done this, because we're getting complaints from our residents that says, hey, we got a problem here, can you find out what the solution is? So I think what it comes down to is this. You now have a variety of surveys that have taken place on specific roads, and I almost guarantee they're backed because one of us asked this to be done, and more than likely a few people in the city said, we got a problem, you need to fix it. The hard part of this question would be, is you've now got this, what do you want to do with it? Because to me, it may very well come down to this. Chief, okay, Kevin, you've seen the data, you run the stuff, what's your recommendation? And if your recommendation would be is it on this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this is it? And your recommendation, if that's what we want from him, then we simply go with those recommendations. Or, may I be blunt, let's don't do this anymore, okay? What I mean by that is that running the police department to run through all of these traffic surveys, and I get a report sitting in front of me, and I don't do anything with it, is a waste of his time and his team's time. It provides no value unless we find some value in it to do something with it. If it's a validation, and when I see these zeros, Chief, let me tell you, at least from my observation, I'll just make my observation, I'm not the decider. But on the front page where it says on 2275 West between 6,000 and 6,800, you got 12 vehicles, no speeders. And that's at 7:45 in the morning, and at 5:55 in the afternoon, you have 50 vehicles and had 1 speeders. My comment, if I had a vote, I'd say, appreciate the information, don't do anything except just normal patrol.
I was going to say, what's your recommendation based off this? Because I'm kind of with the mayor. It does, to me, there's nothing actionable on this.
Right.
So the recommendations my recommendations would be our guys are doing traffic when they have the opportunity to do traffic. We have guys that absolutely love doing traffic. Traffic is getting done. Some of the concerns, and maybe I can help kind of validate some of the concerns, or, people are frustrated because they don't feel like police officers are in their neighborhood, right? They don't ever see them, at least to the point that they thought they used to see them. And so there's this idea that their neighborhoods are just being ignored. I can tell you that they're not being ignored. It's an officer's driving through. It doesn't take very long to drive through a neighborhood. A traffic stop doesn't take very long. They're in the neighborhoods. They just may not be being seen by everybody all of the time, right? And so
I don't see an officer in my neighborhood. I think it's good because things are going well.
So I look
It's
at
when
it.
I see them in the neighborhoods when I start worrying.
So I guess what I would suggest, I mean, I would ask the council and the mayor, maybe when you're talking to your constituents, let them know that we've been doing these studies. We've been doing them over the last 3 years, and the results are always the same. Are people speeding? Well, yes, people are speeding. Is it so egregious all of the time? The data doesn't actually bear that out. And so that would be my suggestion, is maybe just opportunity for the council and the mayor to educate your constituents.
Bingo.
If people perceive there's a problem, I can send an officer out there to actually do enforcement as opposed to doing a study. And we'll get a marked car, they'll be visible. And, you know, at least for the time being, we know that they're there. They're going to change behavior, at least while they're in the neighborhood.
I agree, and to be honest with you, what may be more effective than tasking a police department to do a traffic survey would be just simply ask the chief and says, in this general area, how many tickets have you written? And if he comes in and says, hey, within 6 city blocks of this area, we've got 30 tickets, let me share that with the public and say, we are catching them when there's a violation. That may be more value to them than simply says, hey, I'd like to have a survey done so we can figure out exactly whether we got a problem or not. I appreciate all the work, Chief, to be honest with you, and it's good stuff, and certainly will go in the history book, but I certainly do not see evidence here to suggest is that you want to put some type of a calming device or some type of a device in there that's going to change this, because there's not enough data to suggest we have a problem.
And I think this is hard because we had to see this, and I know you worked a lot of hours on this, but we had to see this in order to make that decision. So do I want to see this happen a lot? No, but for this council right here, I think it needed to happen. And
that's okay.
kept you
Councils come and go.
busy.
We've actually
For
done
just a
heat,
minute.
We've actually done heat maps in the past where we've actually looked at traffic stop locations and citations. And I will tell you, I'm actually thankful for this. When we did the heat map, it was almost as useless because all you saw was Roy and pins everywhere.
Yeah.
So I know the work is being done.
Mhm.
I know it's being done. It was almost useless looking at it because it was just a map full of pins everywhere. So
So I have a question for
Yeah.
you, but it doesn't have to do with this traffic study.
Well,
So are your police officers the ones that ticket people when they leave their cars on the road and they have to plow around them?
yes.
Okay,
They're the only ones that can. It's not
okay,
a code enforcement, it's a violation of the law.
That's right.
okay. I have to give
People
you an
need to
address then.
understand, parking on your grass is a code enforcement. Parking on the street during a storm is a law enforcement.
My jurisdiction ends at the curb line.
Well, I just have a friend whose neighbor always parked in the street, and he lives on a corner, so his house never gets plowed or in front of his driveway because his neighbor's car is always there, so the plow can't get around. And he just wanted me to ask if I gave him, I'll just give you his address and then you can go down and look at it, because he said it's there all winter long and he never moves it and he never gets a ticket, so.
And in the past, the plow drivers have actually been really good at reaching out to us and getting us locations and addresses where we can actually go down and follow up if they can't get around a particular vehicle or down a particular street, so.
Okay.
And sometimes they could be getting a ticket, they're just still not moving the car.
Yeah, and so how much is a ticket if you'd get a ticket for doing that? How much is it?
35.
35? And then if you don't pay it, I mean, do they give you so long to pay it? And if your car's still there after so many weeks, do you just get another ticket or?
Yeah. So eventually you can get impounded, Matt said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just towed away. Mhm.
Well, I think my neighbor would like that.
Any other comments or
I
questions
do
for
have
the
a
chief?
question about that. If there's a situation like that, is it best for them to call Weber County Non-Emergency Dispatch and say, hey, there's a car parked out in the street, it's been out there for 3 days and plows are, what's the best way to report that? Because I'm not the best way to report it, but I'm getting message after message, picture after picture sent to me.
Yeah, typically, it's been my understanding, and Captain Smith can correct me, but when I was in patrol, we actually relied on the plow drivers. If there was an issue, we would actually have the plow drivers reach out to us. Whether or not they're still doing that, I don't know. I have no problem with people calling dispatch center and making them more location. The other thing you can do is you can ask for the duty sergeant that's on that day or that morning or streets can ask for the duty sergeant, and they can give them a rundown of the locations, and then they can go out and follow up.
Okay. Council,
Appreciate all your efforts.
yeah, council, any other comments, questions for the chief? Thanks, Chief. I'll tell you what I'd like to do, and we'll work this out in the council, but great job, lots of great information, certainly a lot of work. But I certainly think that in the future, your efforts are better spent, okay, focusing on things that you think is important and more than what we think is important on this. And so I'm really going to encourage us not to try to push any more traffic surveys unless there's a relevant, important reason to do that. Because I've read this data, I've certainly read some others in the past. They're informative, but I've not seen anything substantive that suggests is that we have a problem that your patrol officers can't fix. Okay, so well done. Captain, thank you. Appreciate the hard work, okay, your team.
Thank you.
Okay, council, we now have the city manager and council report. Matt?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of items for tonight. Mayor did mention a little while ago about the ramp grants. 3 were submitted. I think the date was the 12th, so last Friday. But the 3 that we've been discussing here in the council meeting were all submitted on time. Also, just a friendly reminder that this Thursday, we have the joint holiday dinner for Planning Commission, City Council, and the directors. This Thursday, 6 o'clock at Stella's out in Ogden.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just wanted to follow up with the previous City Council comment, a public comment, that if we would like to keep the Christmas lights on in front of Harmon's, that we can easily do so. We just need a direction from the council.
How about down the street too on the poles? I think that looks pretty classy.
I did talk about this last time. Rocky Mountain Power does pay for them, so that would just cut off at that time when I submitted that, but we can do it wherever you would like.
Just recognize that when we do that, when the funding source is dried up, then we have to pay for that out of city pocket. So just
But
weigh
at
that
least
in.
they're
looks so good, though.
Valentines. They're red and white along the street, so they look really nice. But
Yeah. Whatever you'd like
as
to
long
do.
as we don't have to pay for it, so.
Well, we do. So, yeah, I think
At
until
what
they
point do we
say-
start paying for
Yeah,
it?
when do we? have
I
to-
think it's next week, the 16th or something like that. No, it's actually,
Today?
The
I think
14th.
it is, yeah, the 15th or 16th.
Okay.
The well dried up today?
They're pretty and we've enjoyed them, but I think to spend money on the power for those, I don't know that I.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't
No.
probably cost that much just
It's
for the ones at
probably
Harmon's
not,
though,
but,
but for,
yeah.
No,
yeah,
I-
but
yeah.
take the ones down on 1900 then.
Or can we do that the very last, like as they're taking all these lights down and? Can you
They'll
keep
probably
those
shut-
down?
Well, they just shut them off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're down? Oh. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in that phase right now. They start shutting the
Gonna drive home in
holiday
the
lights
dark.
down. And so I think we're safe that way. But 2 comments on the table. Matt is asking, are you okay with us to go ahead and remain those Christmas tree lights that are sitting at the Harmons at the waterfall and allow those to continue for a little longer? You okay with
Yeah,
that?
because
Yes.
January and February is so depressing. It just brings some, and it's so dark so early, so it
Yeah.
would just look nice.
Now, the other question that's on the table would be is even though funding is going to basically drop off today, it sounds like, are you wanting to allow then the other lights that run down 1900 to remain on under the understanding is that we'll pay that bill?
Is there any way to estimate the cost of that? I know that, I don't want to send you down a rabbit hole, but I'd probably say shut them off then.
Yeah, I'd say shut them off.
Okay, so Matt, I think the answer to the second question would be is that your traditional approach would be at this date, you would normally start shutting it down. And I think that's appropriate personally. Thanks, council. Anything else, Matt?
nope, that was it.
Okay, anything else before I address a couple of things?
Yeah, I would just like to give 2 big shout outs. One to Public Works for taking care of the streets. There have been so many residents commenting on what a good job they're doing, taking pictures of our streets and streets of surrounding cities, so we have the best. And thank you to the Parks Department for plowing the walking paths. It's nice to be able to walk on them. I did have a resident ask me about it, and I kind of asked Matt about it. Is there any way to salt them? But that might be more of a problem than it's worth. I mean, I'm grateful that we plow them. I just thought I would ask, but thank you for keeping the streets and the walking paths plowed.
Because
That's
my
awesome.
son-in-law runs on those walking paths, and right when he got to West Haven, it was all snow. And so he took a picture of how nice ours looked, and then he had a lot of other comments too, but ours were all good, so.
Well, I know one night I walked during the snowstorm, and then the next morning I got up and it was already plowed, so they're on top of it, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, great comment, Joe.
I have a
And-
quick comment.
Go ahead, Sophie.
I shout out to the police department. I'm the new liaison for the PD, and I was asked to come to a staff meeting, and it was amazing to watch captains ask questions, and then the multiple sergeants jump in with comments and questions and how they thought it could be handled, and for each one of them to be listened to and collaborate and walk out of the room with a discussion and a great solution to a pretty big, not a problem, but a pretty big situation that they were dealing with. And I thought, and to come out of it with everybody, the discussion was amazing. So anyway, hats off to you. Very well done. That was very nice to watch that.
Okay, great comments. Anything else, council?
Roy City's a pretty dang good city.
Let me write that
Up
one
here.
down. A really good, did you say, city?
Yes.
We
Okay.
have a banner with all our names on that? No, I'm just teasing.
I mean, it's good because we hear praise from every department out here. I mean, everybody's working their best to help keep the city safe, keep it looking good. No, I
like
there
that.
there was a time when I first moved here that I didn't have the pride that I do today.
May I offer one thing? And I try to do this as often as I can, but I do it discreetly, but more importantly, only when I see the best of the best. We were issued a challenge coin that's a council and mayor challenge coin. And when you witness, okay, the kind of perfection and excellence, okay, in our community, whether that be in the residents' efforts or certainly within our staff in terms of what they do, take a moment, if you would, and just simply issue that. Just take a moment and give them that from you, okay? I certainly do. You need to as well. To simply says, you're doing a great job. You can tell them all day, thank you for the great service. You can even point it out. But every time they see that challenge coin, every time they basically take that out of their pocket or sitting on a shelf and they see it, they're going to remember you took the time to recognize that great effort. And I think that's a powerful way by which you can truly say thank you. Certainly a public meeting, wonderful, but do it the other way as well. Because I will tell you, these chiefs, these senior staff are going to go back and they're going to tell the people, Brandon, you got a tasking for a young employee who honestly, Mr. Howard, really needs to hear from you. But I will tell you, that young man, when the public will say the kinds of things that they said tonight, that's the kind of person that we need to take a coin to and simply say, you did a great thing tonight, okay? And we just heard about it and show that.
Yeah, employee of the month.
Good.
And certainly is, yeah, I think Joe's right. Employee of the nominate. This is what it's all about, okay? So consider that. Just a couple last things before we go for a motion to adjourn. I will indicate to you, and you've seen this if you picked up this piece of paper from Steve. He's trying to be an advocate to this. If you can make it out to the Marriott Slatersville City Hall building on January 23rd between 5:30 and 7 o'clock, the county's going to discuss, okay, and lay out a plan in terms of how they're going to link the trail systems that exist, okay, within the county and how they want to put together. Should be an interesting conversation. They got some ideas and some plans. They would certainly invite us to be there and at least be taking part in that discussion. So think about joining us. I think that'd be a lot of fun to hear what they got planned. Last thing, if you don't mind, on January 24th at 7 p.m., there's a program called the Safe Child Project. It's going to take place at Syracuse High School, 7 o'clock at night on the 24th. The purpose is talk about children's safety in our broader community. They invited, I understand, Elizabeth Smart to be a keynote speaker at that group. They're inviting the school district superintendents, they're inviting the public. It's an opportunity to kind of talk about some of the most difficult things we talk about and deal with. I can't speak to what it's all about there, but I will tell you, Chief, it goes to the heart of the purposeness of the Children's Justice Center. These are sensitive, they're difficult to talk about, but they are so important that we understand. I think the theme, this is going to be about children. And it might be a good idea if the senior leaders within Roy City, as well as senior leaders in other municipalities, legislators, and school superintendents and leaders are listening and understanding and having a conversation about what's happening in our community. I can't speak too much about it except to say this. There are things that happen in our community that sometimes we get at least a sneak peek that are happening. But unless you are touched personally by childhood suicides or child abuse where things are happening within your little world, it oftentimes goes unnoticed. We just don't know. And yet it exists. And to hear stories, and I'm not the expert, to hear stories that the biggest single life taker in our community between the age of 14 and 18 is youth suicide, it shocks me, okay, to hear that, because I don't read about that. I don't know about that. If we are going to be advocates for our people, then we need to know, we need to understand, and we need to ask questions because they need to understand. So you have an opportunity on the 24th of January, 7 p.m. Consider joining in that conversation. Just sit back and let's listen, and maybe we can walk out of there with something that'll help us to become better people. And more importantly, we might be able to share. With that, at some point in time, Matt, Brody, you weren't there today, but certainly Matt, there are some things happening with the 5600 widening project. We had our meeting today with the contractor and UDOT. Some interesting things unfolding. We'll try to keep those things and share them with you so you see what's going on. But some really good things are happening, and they're making some great progress. 5600 is looking really, really good, as difficult as it is. I will tell you one thing we've been watching. They believe in the next 2 weeks, the Chateau Park. Yeah, those two parking units will be taken down. And that will open up that corridor, and you will now really start to see, how that whole thing's come together. We could very well see by the end of next year, which is kind of the plan, the south side of 5600 paved. It may not necessarily go over, Brandon, over the bridge because they're still working with Union Pacific, but certainly the south side of 5600 could very well be paved, and they're ready to start the north side. This is happening. It's exciting to see. We'll try to keep you posted on all the things we're hearing and all the things that's going on, so you're very much aware to talk to the residents about. Council, is there anything else you'd like to share
Are they
tonight?
only widening the south side of the viaduct or the bridge?
They're widening on the bridge, the north side.
Oh, the
They're going to
north
build a
side.
whole new bridge on the north side of that, a bridge extension.
Okay.
But I will tell you, and Matt and I heard it today, because you have a couple of you very tied to education and the children. Today, the north side of 5600, the children, I shouldn't say that, the junior high students are actually walking, up over the bridge and north to the junior high and walk home at night. You see that if you drive down. Not so much elementary, but certainly the junior high. They're going to redirect that. When the construction starts on the north side of that bridge, and it will start soon, the plan is that on the east side of that, at one of those roads, they're going to put a crosswalk through there with signal lights at the time when those kids are moving, because they got to move those kids off the north side and get them on the south side of that bridge to get over the bridge to go home. A lot of changes. You're going to see it. We'll keep you posted, but it's important that you know that, and equally important that you share that.
Have we heard of Wendy's, what they're going to do yet?
It's up in the air still.
Oh, okay.
It was a conversation we had today. Please, if you get a second, it'd take too long to discuss it here, but Ann, you or anybody else have an interest, talk to Matt, talk to me. We were in the meetings today. Brock was in the meeting today. So Brody, thanks for having him there. And we can share with you what we know about the Wendy's and what's happening there. Okay?
I just have people ask me all the
Okay.
time.
Yeah, I love Wednesdays. Anything else before I ask for a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
And Joe, I was just going to ask you if that works for you.
second it.
And thank you. Okay, do all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us tonight.